MademmyifyASMR True Crime. Welcome back, my Mad Hatters, and welcome to Mademmyify ASMR, and of course welcome to another True Crime Tuesday. If you don't know what True Crime Tuesdays are on my channel, basically every Tuesday I bring you a true crime tale in a soft spoken way. And why is my forehead so shiny? Anyway, today's case, I am just gonna jump straight into things. I think it's probably gonna be a short one, but I just want to stick with a short intro and focus on the case. I have my new iPad, so this is really a test of that and how that's going to work as a teleprompter going forward. So I apologise in advance if there's lots of me like moving my arm over here. It's just where I'm having to like stop and start things. In August 1983, 10-year-old Karen Stringer saved her entire family from death. She discovered a fire had broken out in the airing cupboard of the family home, and she went straight to her parents. Her quick thinking meant she, her 6 siblings and parents got out safely. After this, Karen became somewhat of a local celebrity. She even won a flight on a Concorde airplane for her bravery. After the fire that unfortunately destroyed their home, the family moved from Luton to Cornwall. Karen grew up here and got married, and she became Karen Pedley. She had children with her husband, and she worked odd jobs to make ends meet, being one of 6, or it might be 7. Some sources differed. This meant she had a very large extended family. Her nephews described her as a caring person. She was sometimes a little reckless, but she never did anything to put them directly in danger. She would take her nieces and nephews out on her moped, and she would take them for day trips either as a family or on the moped. Karen's father ran a bingo hall, and a big hobby or a big pastime for the entire family was to go down the bingo hall for a game of bingo. In 2002, Karen got a job working as a cleaner at the Trafula House nursing home. Not long after she'd started this job, a fire broke out at the home. Luckily, no one was hurt in this fire, but as to how it had started seemed a mystery. In 2006, Karen moved to a house with her immediate family in Carrick, Cornwall. Some strange incidents began to follow Karen around this time. Karen was still taking these odd jobs, casual work at various pubs, shops and clubs, and after she left a place of employment, fires would break out at her former places of employment. At one time she was working at a care home, and the manager of this care home caught her sleeping on the job, and so he sacked her. Then, shortly after she was sacked, there was actually an arson attack on the home. Karen would often be the one who alerted the fire department, or she would be the first on the scene at these fires. However, there was nothing that proved that all of these incidents were arson, and no one actually connected the fact that Karen Pedley had worked at all of these places where the fires were breaking out. In 2008, Karen applied to work at another care home, Rosewin House. It had recently been taken over by new management, and the staff there described the home and its staff, as well as the residents, as being just one big family. The care home had some flats that were part of the home, but were designed for those who were more physically able, but they'd still have the staff available like she had the experience and would be the perfect fit with the staff and residents at the home. She had worked at a lot of care homes. She began as a cook, but she did say in her interview that she was really happy to take on any care work if it was ever needed. Karen immediately fitted in and would often spend a lot of time speaking to the older, more vulnerable female residents of the home. Karen would often dance and laugh and make jokes with them. At some point after she started at Rosewood House, Karen began to mention to other staff how she was concerned that there could easily be a fire at the home due to the state of the electrics in some of the rooms. She also told one of her sisters about these same concerns. She also insisted to the owner of the home that they do more fire drills and more fire training. She also told the owner how she had saved someone from a fire in Falmouth at another care home. One day, Karen called one of her sisters to express concern about some frayed cables. Like this, the thing you tell your family about, sure you tell your employer. And these were specifically in room 5 at Rosewood House. She was clearly trying to give herself an out should there ever be a fire at the home. On November the 23rd, 2008, Karen was working with a colleague named Catherine in room 5. This room belonged to 96-year-old Gladys Rowe and Olive Ray, who was in her 70s. Catherine was administering medication to the ladies whilst Karen got them ready for and then into bed. It seemed like nothing out of the ordinary. Jenny, the care home manager, was on site and had seen Karen and Catherine before she checked on her own mother, as she did every night. And then Jenny had returned to her own flat that was still part of the home. Not long after she had got back to her property, she received a call from Karen informing her there was a fire in room 5. Jenny rushed back to the home and was just greeted by absolute chaos as elderly residents were being evacuated. Her first thought was to rush to room 5, but unfortunately she just couldn't get into the room due to the fire damage. The entire room was just black. Jenny described that night as the worst thing she has ever done in 45 years working in care. And although everyone was successfully evacuated alive from the home, unfortunately a couple days after the blaze, Gladys Rowe passed away in hospital from smoke inhalation. Gladys was a very well-known woman around Truro and was popular and well liked. She would love to tell stories about her life when she was younger, and she'd tell these stories to people who visited the home and was just described as being really full of life in spite of being 96 years old. Jenny was immediately suspicious about how this fire had begun. The fire door for room 5 had not closed automatically as it should, and she went over things in her head that could have started the fire. Maybe someone had been smoking. If it was highly unlikely it was a resident who had been smoking, as no one smoked in the rooms and they only had a couple of residents that did actually smoke, and there was nothing in that area of the room where the fire had originated that Jenny felt could have really caused a fire. Olive Ray also passed away at some point after the fire, but her cause of death was, I don't believe, directly caused by the fire. Police investigations also concluded the fire was not arson, but they just still couldn't explain the cause. Karen still wanted to make sure nothing could possibly be pinned on her. She actually threatened a colleague, saying that she would burn her house down if she didn't corroborate her version of events, and asked her sister to lie for her. By 2010, Karen had committed arson about 12 times over the span of 5 years, yet police soon after the fire, told all the staff that had been working that night to write down exactly what happened that evening. Her logic behind this was that one day someone will ask you, and if it's been a few years, you're probably not going to remember. So write it down, sign it, and I'll lock it in a desk should it ever be needed. And these statements were actually key once all of the investigation came out. In 2012, police finally felt they had enough information to question Karen Pedley about the fire at Rosewood House. As part of their inquiries, they searched her home, and in her house they found a scrapbook filled with newspaper clippings about the fire she had saved her family from in 1983. This kick-started the investigation, and police finally realised that wherever Karen Pedley worked, fires seemed to very frequently occur. The following year, in 2013, Karen's sister got a call from the police to ask her if she could make a statement, as Karen insisted she was with her the night of the care home fire. Her sister refused. The statement from the co-worker that Karen had threatened also came out around this time. Police quickly realised Karen would often insert herself into the investigations into her fires. She was the first on the scene, and she would often suggest to fire investigators how she thought the fire had begun. In 2015, Karen Pedley was finally arrested. By 2016, prosecutors felt they had a strong enough case to charge Karen with 14 arson attempts, leading back as far as 2002, as well as the attempted murder of Olive Ray and the murder of Gladys Rowe. Whilst in jail, Karen actually set fire to her own prison cell. Karen Pedley was found guilty of Gladys's murder and all of the counts of arson, but not guilty for the attempted murder of Olive Ray. I don't really understand how. She was handed 14 life sentences to serve a minimum of 27 years in prison, and who knows, maybe that fire in 1983 was caused by Karen. This conviction would not have been possible if it was not for the record keeping and the hard work pushing the police, pushing the fire investigators that was done by the management and the staff at Rosewood House to try and get justice for Gladys and, in a way, Olive as well. That is all I have for you tonight.